You're watching InterviewWorld.com, where today we're catching up with guitarist Mike Stern in San Francisco. Mike, thanks for coming on InterviewWorld.com.
It's a pleasure.
Now, you have a very distinctive sound. I don't know if it has a name. It's the sort of out-of-phase sound that people have come to know. Whenever they hear that sound, they know instantly it's Mike Stern. Did you make a conscious effort to separate yourself from the pack of guitarists?
Not really. I was just kind of looking for a sound that I've always liked a singing kind of sound on the guitar. So I was trying to get that. I try to get that the way I play also. It just is something that I hear naturally and try to adjust to when I'm playing the guitar. Less percussive sounding and less picked sound, more legato kind of sound, I guess. More kind of vocal kind of sound. And I like to play like a horn player, kind of with a horn lines, and that has a very, of course, I play with saxophone players a lot, and sometimes trumpet players, and I've played with some well-known saxophone and trumpet players, and also just the guys in my band. I usually have a tenor saxophone, and I like the way it. So I'm always looking for that. So for years I've been looking for kind of a sound that sounds legato and kind of vocal sounding, and this. So the way I play does that, and also this 2-amp setup, this kind of stereo sound with a little bit of chorus, kind of has that happening, and a little bit of delay, so it sounds it helps the legato. I think if you heard me just through 1 amp, you would say that you could tell that I'm looking for that anyway, but it enhances it to have the 2-amp kind of chorus sound. That's that kind of gives it a kind of fatter, airier sound, and it really gels well with the saxophone that I like to play with, or in a trio setting. It's just a fuller sound, kind of.
Now, here you are, one of the most respected jazz guitarists around today, and yet it really wasn't until, I guess, the Berklee School of Music that you kind of made the move that direction. What had you been listening to prior to that, and what was it about jazz that kind of made you want to move in that direction?
Well, when I first started playing, I was listening to a lot of rock players and blues players, like a lot of kids in the 60s when I picked up guitar. You know, I was listening to Hendrix and B.B. King and all those guys. And I kind of got more into jazz because my mom used to play a lot of jazz records around the house. A lot of jazz and classical records around the house, but I kind of took some of those jazz records and tried to play along with them in my room, and I got lost right away. But I really dug the music, so I wanted to study some more. I went to Berklee College of Music and first took some private lessons, and then, because before then I was pretty much ear taught, and then I took some private lessons and got more into that world of learning the notes and the guitar and all the logistics, and tried to get into jazz more, which took a minute because it was more complicated. For me, doesn't make it better or worse. I think whatever gets your heart is cool, you know. And I like sometimes the simplest stuff gets me the most. But I love the music in general of jazz, so I wanted to try how to play it, play over jazz standards and stuff like that. So I kind of got into that. And at Berklee, that was really a big help for me to kind of get into learn the whole thing of the guitar, to learn all that stuff, and to learn a lot of the music that they showed me logistically, and then coming out of there, playing with some great players, that I got a chance to play with, kind of helped everything. And that's probably how you learn the most, is by playing. It's like learning a language. It's you learn a language by speaking the language and by listening to the language. And I think in this case, you learn language by playing the language and listening to the language and listening to players that are fluent in it, And so that's what I've kind of done, and I love it. I totally love it. So that's how I kind of got into jazz.
After Berklee, you were kind of on a fast track. I mean, it wasn't terribly long after that. You hooked up with Blood, Sweat, and Tears, doing an extended thing.
Well, I actually never finished Berklee. I went did that for, when I was 22. I had gone to Berklee for 3 years, and then I got the gig with Blood, Sweat, and Tears. It was actually a teacher that I was, he was about 18 at the time. And it was Pat Metheny was teaching at Berklee already at that time. Amazing. He was already killing. He was playing great. And somehow he liked my playing. I have no idea why at that point, because I couldn't, even figure out how to play the right notes on some of the chords and all that stuff. But he heard something he really liked, so he always just really emphasized that you learn this music by playing it, as well as by studying all that stuff, but you really learn it by playing it. So he heard about this audition for Blood, Sweat and Tears, and I went and auditioned thinking I'll at least learn how to audition for a big famous band, and I'll never get the gig. But I got the gig, and which surprised me a lot, because there were a lot of people auditioning, and somehow they picked me, they liked me. So that's how I kind of got some real professional experience. I'd been playing for kind of local rock bands before that, or blues bands, where I grew up in Washington D.C. But never on a level like going on the road with a band of really great musicians. Then after that, I played with a lot of bebop gigs. I went back to Boston, where I was living at the time, and played a lot of bebop gigs with Jerry Bergonzi and who's an amazing tenor saxophone player, and another guy named Tiger Okoshi, great trumpet player. And then after that, Billy Cobham, kind of around that time, a couple of years later, Billy Cobham called and was asking for me to play with him, see if I was available, and I said, yeah, and he's a great drummer. And then after that, Miles heard me with Billy, which was, and I played with Miles for a while. That was quite an experience.
I bet, yeah. You did a couple of different periods with Miles, right?
I did some stuff with Miles, a couple of different periods. Originally, I was doing these gigs in Boston after Blood, Sweat and Tears. So with Bergonzi, with guys that live up there who are fantastic musicians. Tiger Okoshi, as I mentioned, is an amazing trumpet player, and Jerry Bergonzi. Basically, those were the two real influences for me. During that time, I was also playing little gigs and little clubs with those guys and some other people. And Bill Evans, the saxophone player that was playing with Miles eventually, called me and asked to come up, and he'd heard that I was playing at this little place, and he said, let's do a gig there at this place, Michael's club on Gainsborough Street. It's closed now, unfortunately. A lot of those places have closed, and they were really cool. But so we did some gigs there, and Bill was playing his ass off, an incredible tenor saxophone player, and he told me he was playing with Miles. He said, we're getting ready to go on the road, we're doing a record. I didn't even believe him. And he said, if the guitar player that Miles has now doesn't work out, because it looks like he was a great player, but it wasn't personally working out. He said he wants to recommend me for Miles. So I said, well, that would be really great. And anyway, it worked out. I was playing with Billy Cobham about a year later. I'd been playing with Billy close to a year, and then we were playing in New York, and Bill called me up and he said, I'm bringing Miles to hear you in the second set, so play your ass off. And I said, well, yeah, I'll certainly try. And so that's what happened. So Miles heard me, and he really liked what I did. So he called Billy off the stage while we were playing, and he said, tell your guitar player to be at Studio B tomorrow at Columbia Studios, at 6 o'clock. So Billy passed on the message. Then I asked Bill Evans about that, and he said, yeah, go to this address and just be there. And so I did a little recording with Miles, and then we did another recording after that, and then we went on the road.